Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. Today it's Sunday, and we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. The section specifically on the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, where we know we get to have the great fortune of looking at the Four Noble Truths in various different ways to get a really good understanding of what actually suffering is, identify it so clearly, and then figure out, since it's a result, what actually causes it. And Buddha identifies it so well in this same section, in the origin of suffering, and then identifies the fact that it can end. And then there's a path of the three highest higher trainings that we're told about that will allow us to achieve that freedom from suffering that we all crave. And we look at our main motivation day and night, mentally, and then we physically, are led by our mind to want physically some sort of happiness and a freedom from suffering. And the Buddha came to this world 2,600 years ago or so out of great compassion to show us how to actually achieve exactly what we crave so much in a way that will actually produce that which we want to have so badly. And it's unfortunate that over and over and over again, it talks about in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment in this section, if the tears that we've had to shed in samsara were to be able to be measured, that all of the oceans of the world wouldn't be big enough to fill them. And we see that the pain of cyclic existence is just so hard and overbearing at times. And it's just because of the fact that we have this self-grasping ignorance. And we've had this since beginningless time, that we've been forced in to a set of aggregates, into a set of parts that kind of have embedded within it suffering, at least at the level of the pervasive compounded suffering. And it means that we are going to be disappointed and have uncertainty and have pain and mistake pain for pleasure, and this will happen over and over and over again. And unfortunately, there are times where the amount of pain is just so intense. And I just want to say that I'm so sorry to everyone at the Shravasti Abbey who's going through so much pain right now and so much mental suffering, looking for their kind teacher, Geshe Dadu Namjo, also known as Geshe Tenzin Chodak. He went for a walk on Tuesday, and everyone who knows the Shravasti Abbey knows it's in very dense wooded area. And he did not come back for the Guru Puja that evening. And ever since then, they have been on, a day and night search for him. They've had drones and dogs and search parties, and all the monastics are looking, and, locals are helping. So at this point, he hasn't been found. So now it's Sunday, and it's quite cold at night there. He's very, very intelligent. He's a Geshe Larampa. He speaks English very, very well. So just please keep Geshe La in your prayers, that he's at peace and can be found safely, and whatever he's going through, whatever state of his consciousness is in, here, wherever his consciousness is, that he's at peace. So first of all, may we pray for that, and that he's found safely, and that he can, endure whatever the situation is that he's going through now long enough to be found. And that we also pray for the Shravasti Abbey, who is obviously having to experience so much pain, the suffering of separation and uncertainty that's going on with them now. May we pray that Aryatara, who's inseparable from Khenser Geshe Wandak, can gaze into their eyes just for a moment, that they can just see her and know that it'll be okay, and that cyclic existence is just plagued with these kinds of suffering. And until we figure out a way to get rid of that which binds us to this suffering that we have over and over and over again, we're going to have to shed more tears. We're going to have to lose more friends. We're going to have this uncertainty of whether things will be okay. We just found out that Lori Everyone knows Lorinda is going to need brain surgery. So we, walk into an office thinking then, oh, how much longer? Oh, now we'll find out. We have to see now another 6 months how this thing will be growing. And today, we're sitting in a reality where we know that major complicated surgery is going to have to take place very, very soon. And this wasn't a reality that we were wanting, looking forward to, thinking would ever happen in a million years. A couple of years ago, you never think things like this will happen. And here we are, ready for meetings next week to get into some sort of a major operation. When you say brain surgery in a difficult area of the brain, this obviously becomes so scary. So we don't have to look very far for to identify things which we wished we didn't have to experience. The empirical reality around us is so terrifying at times, so painful at times, just so scary. We know Professor Hopkins has just had to go through such major touch and go operations that we've been so worried about him. And these are all results of having to be in cyclic existence. These are all results, all of the things that we go through, whether it's, like I say, a pinprick or sleeping wrong and having just a little bit of a pain in the shoulder, all the way up to the greatest pains that we're talking about today, the potential of losing, the person you love more than anyone in the world when you're honest, and not doing bodhicitta practice, the potential for losing your teacher in some freak, who knows what circumstance, the potential for that will always happen to all of us if we're young and live long enough, that our elders will leave. And those that have taught us so much will leave, and we will become the elders that will leave. And we never see when the elders leave that it's a sign that we'll leave. We just become sad that some external being that we think inherently exists leaves, and we don't see that our will leave. We don't recognize that the reason we're so sad is we haven't thought about them leaving. We haven't thought about impermanence. We've clung to them as being permanent. We haven't thought about the situations that we're in as possibly being suffering. We think it's all happy. We think that it's not pain. We haven't thought about it. We're surprised by it. We haven't thought about it enough to see it's just a natural progression of disintegration. We don't get to pick when the disintegration happens. Cars don't just, run their life out. Sometimes they break because of something internally that breaks, that causes the car to only go 50,000 miles. And we look at empirical reality and we know things work like that. Some cars just never stop running, and people just don't even want to look at that car anymore, and they turn it in even though it's just fine and it runs just right. But it all relies on causes and conditions. We know that the Buddha said all phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation of causes as well are taught by the great seer. We see that all of these things come into motion because of causes and conditions. And when we have contaminated causes and conditions, contaminated results happen. And contaminated results, when we're talking about cyclic existence, contaminated results only lead to birth, aging, sickness, and death, lead to the suffering of separation, the suffering of, meeting with the unpleasant and separating with the pleasant, the suffering of not getting what you want, the suffering of appropriated aggregates, and so forth, because we've created causes that will lead to these results. I've created causes that led to these results, where now I have the uncertainty of someone that I care about so much, because they're experiencing aging and sickness, and I'm uncertain about what's going to happen to them. And I then am forced into this state of just overwhelming sadness at times because of the fact that I, even when I relate to this circumstance, think of myself at the end of the day more than the other person. So I'm not even capable of being the utmost benefit at times because of that. So when we talk about this, this is happening because of my grasping, we have to understand this grasping at the eye, at being inherently existent. I see this externality, And then I say, oh, there's me. And then I grasp at I and mine. And then from that, there's this cherishing, self-cherishing attitude that says that I'm the most important thing in the universe, and that anything that seems unpleasant to me is going to disturb my mind. It's just going to disturb my mind. My mind can be disturbed by suffering of separation or someone cutting me off by a car. My mind can go to very heightened states for no reason. This reason's obviously everyone would agree in the world, a good reason. But then I can watch my mind go just as crazy, maybe not for as long and sustainable, over very, very little things. And both things are because I have this self-cherishing attitude where I'm grasping at the I and phenomena as being inherently existent. So then I'm putting value on myself and externality. I'm putting value on the self of person and self of phenomena that it can't possibly hold. I'm believing that it internally within itself has something there for me to grasp to. And if it's me, care more about, and if it's other, not identify as important. And it's this feeling that even when I'm feeling sad about my partner getting sick or my teacher, losing my teacher, I'm saying I'm sad about I'm sad about and it's then from there, we have adequate, realistic things we think about. Okay, the rest of the world says you should be sad. This is the person closest to you. But we're saying I'm sad about my teacher. I'm sad about my teacher, again, Jeffrey Hopkins. I'm sad about I lead with this my part. And I find that a lot when I speak about Khyentse Geshe Wandak in this my way. And I don't know, just putting that out there for everyone to investigate and to think about how you relate to suffering, how you relate to what you think is compassion, how you relate to, is it just, is it really fear? Is it anger? Really anger. Think about this. You have this attachment to someone, and then you're angry at the fact that you're sad, which creates fear in you. You're angry at the fact that they're sick, rather, and that creates fear in you because of fear of suffering of separation. We look at the 8 types of suffering, the suffering of separating from the pleasant, the suffering of meeting with the unpleasant. So you're separating with the unpleasant, meeting with the unpleasant, and not going to get what you want, or maybe you will. But there's that uncertainty, and that uncertainty is there because of the truth of suffering. Because we have the causes, because we have the origin, we have the contaminated karma, seeds, and afflictions. We have the origin that comes, and we have the self-grasping ignorance that gives rise to the inappropriate attention, that gives rise to the afflictions, that gives rise to the karma, contaminated karmas that give rise to the situation, because we have that. We can have that. So here we have such an incredible opportunity to learn how to reverse it, how to reverse the 12 links of dependent origination, so that the ignorance doesn't allow any of it else to happen if we get rid of the ignorance. How to, learn why we're bound to cyclic existence by the first 2 truths, and then how we're unbound from cyclic existence by the next 2 noble truths. And we're so fortunate that we have an opportunity to learn about this. Not that, oh, then that means that good and bad, good is bad and bad is good, nothing matters, don't be sad, smile. You will maybe react differently when you have this wisdom, but it will still appear to you as something that you don't want, at least because even the bodhisattva has the greatest amount of renunciation, even though he or she stays in cyclic existence seemingly and keeps coming back to help. They have the highest amount of renunciation, the highest amount of distaste for the 8 types of suffering, 6 types of suffering, and 3 types of suffering. And they just distaste it for everybody. Whereas not just for themselves. They, when the hearers and solitary realizers meditate, they agree everyone else has this condition that stinks. but they're focused on figuring out how to unstink their own. Whereas the Bodhisattva understands, because they've meditated on it about themselves, that the 8, 6, and 3 types of suffering are something they definitely want to merge from. And because of that solid education, systematic education of suffering, identified suffering, and then looked at what origin was there to abandon, because causes, remove results. A result can't happen if the cause and condition isn't there for it to happen. So the Bodhisattva has become so clear on exactly what, suffering, this truth of suffering is, and what causes it, and wants to emerge so strongly from the truth of suffering, wants to emerge, so strongly that he or she has generated a renunciation that day and night wants them to get out of cyclic existence. And they know that the suffering mentioned by Buddha at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, at the first noble truth in Varanasi and Sarnath, India, the first turning of the wheel, this is the superior truth of suffering. They know it in its complete potential, and then turn that renunciation towards others and say, wow, everyone in the universe that is a sentient being that has afflictive obstructions, we'll say, anyone in the universe that has afflictive obstructions will have to have some sort of situation in cyclic existence. Until the afflictive obstructions are removed, they're going to have to be bound to cyclic existence. Until the self-grasping ignorance is removed, beings are going to have to experience among the various types of suffering. And at the ordinary being level, it's really disgusting. And most beings are ordinary beings. So when we're talking about this, we can always make these exceptions and debate and try to make some strange corner of the room exception. But let's be realistic and look at what Arya Deva said. Most ignoble, most ordinary beings are involved in the ignoble. So most ordinary beings go to the lower realms. So, and that's, we're in the higher realm, and we can empirically see 8 sufferings, right? We're in the higher realm, and we can see that. So come on, the Bodhisattva knows that wow, everyone has to experience that. And he or she's done the meditation to recognize that the person that they love so much in this life and has taken care of them when they were so vulnerable that they would jump in front of a bus for is everyone. So when you look at that person in your life that you care so much about, you don't want them to have the suffering of aging, sickness, death, the suffering of meeting with the unpleasant and separating from the pleasant, and the suffering of not getting what they want at all. So the Bodhisattva just has such a broader view than you and I do about the people we're attached to. The Bodhisattva has non-biased, and he or she then feels that in a way we couldn't even begin to imagine, but we have to use our everyday circumstances when we think about, caring. The Bodhisattva has this unbiased caring for everyone in the universe and can't stand the fact that they could have to have 8, 6, or 3 types of suffering. Why? Because they can't stand the fact that they could. The Bodhisattva can't stand the fact that he or she has to be thrown again and again and again without any freedom, and a lack of freedom is misery. The Bodhisattva can't stand that he or she has to have that. And therefore is the best candidate to understand to start to have empathy, because the Bodhisattva has, through getting to renunciation, looked at all the ways one could ever suffer, period, full stop. So he or she knows among the things you're going through, knows it clearly, and knows the things you're going through in terms of potentiality, because they've become educated about the Four Noble Truths themselves, and so forth. So renunciation serves as the foundation for this beautiful mind of enlightenment. And that's the section that we're in right now. And it directly relates to the tears that we shed in cyclic existence, the suffering of suffering that we have to experience, that's so painful in cyclic existence, that's so coarse, it's so untasty. It's right here, right here. And we have to decide whether we want to continue to have that taste in our mouth or not. It's our decision. And when these things happen in our life, it's very easy to have them thrust you into some sort of practice, which is good if it's sustainable. But it's very important to make sure that we have an overview of the truth of suffering so that our renunciation isn't just anger. And it's very clear in Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika Karika in the second chapter that we must be careful with this. We must be careful to not think that our renunciation that's based on the fact that we're mad at some circumstances in samsara is what we're counting on. Because we're just renouncing that particular suffering because we're angry at it. We're just pushing. We're angry. We're pushing. That's not renunciation, it's an anger. Renunciation is an anger. So it's important when we go through these circumstances in cyclic existence where we have these pains, where we lose our friends and family, and then we see our friends and family get sick and uncertainty. We have to make sure that we identify this accurately and see that these sorts of things are inevitably ongoing. And whether our Dharma practice is going to kick in or it's going to be something that we haven't familiarized our minds with well enough so it can't kick in. So this is where, does our Dharma practice produce realizations within our mind? Not realizations like, and then I saw Tara in front of me. Then I saw emptiness. And then I went into single pointed concentration. And I, for 4 hours, thought of nothing except the object of emptiness, inferentially, No. It means when tragedy strikes, can you bring the Dharma practice into it in some way that's reasonable while being kind to yourself and saying that the Dharma was taught for a very, very long road of a consciousness moving towards Buddhahood. And sometimes we need to have some other solutions when we're in crisis. So we know that the Buddha is so kind to have said in so many texts, and Lama Tsongkhapa is so kind to say that if you have mental or illness, it's right in the Lamrim Chemo, or physical illness, stop meditating and tend to those first. So we have to be very realistic with what we think the Dharma can cure immediately and can't cure immediately. So the hesitance at times to seek Western means of, psychotherapy, etc. I'm not advocating it. I but I would, if I needed it, go to that. So at this moment, I don't. But if I do, I would go to that. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows. I think there's an overselling of Buddhist psychology being able to be the great medicine for mankind. And I don't disagree that it's the great medicine. But it doesn't work as quickly at times as the pain of cyclic existence. So important to understand this and give yourself a break. Even if you've been a Dharma practitioner for a long time and you find yourself going into sadness or depression, I've just seen this too many times over the years where people didn't allow themselves to have the space or didn't think they were good enough or thought I should have been better because my Dharma practice has been X amount of years. And why don't I have these realizations that would allow me to be able to handle anything? I should be like a superhero by now. And this just isn't realistic. This is like thinking of we're going through a drive-through at McDonald's and we're picking up a a happy meal of spirituality, and that somehow we're going to take something that's been wrong since beginningless time, and we're going to go through a drive-through because we're Westerners and we have this arrogant idea that we can somehow realize things that people spend their entire lives 7 days a week trying to realize and say they haven't, but we do it within a year or 2 years. We try to really speed it up. And then what happens is when we hit a life circumstance that we can't handle, we feel like failures as Dharma practitioners. And I felt the cusp of it happen, and I got straightened out by Umzala Aga when Rinpoche died. The cusp of it happened for me. And Umzala Aga was able to straighten me out and, give me some techniques and meditation. Nothing like mystical or strange, just like common sense things with Tsongkhapa, and Kirtip J and students and so forth. But I really do encourage you to not ever get to a place where you think, oh, I've been this practitioner and now I have a tragedy in my life and I should be handling it better. Why am I having angry outbursts, or why am I having this or that happen? These are all stories that I've heard over the years. Remember, I sat next to Rinpoche for decades and heard questions for decades and heard people tell me stories behind closed doors. So I know how Western Dharma practitioners' minds work, pitfalls. Not saying I have some special edge, but remember that I not only translated, but I was on phone calls and questions and, about things that I couldn't translate and would be honest about, and things just so I really, really have seen the gamut of these things. So when I say this isn't me just trying to be a soothsayer or, trying to say, oh, my mind has been so like a roller coaster my whole life. Let me tell you, it has, but these aren't all my personal things I'm sharing with you. I'm trying to say that give yourselves a break. This is a long run. If you want to meditate on bodhicitta day and night, it doesn't mean you're going to even get it in this lifetime. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to even get to the precepts where you cherish others more than yourself. It doesn't mean you're even going to get to the point in this lifetime where you have any business doing Tonglen practice. So we really have Tonglen, giving and taking practice. And it's prescribed like just given out to people, like everybody should just take it. Everybody should just take on suffering. You're having mental depression. Imagine you're taking on more depression. It's really a lot of bad advice. Geshe Dorje Damdu's been hammering this home. So when I hear things, because I was a translator, it's just like comes out of me, but it's not like I'm trying to like what does Jeffrey Hopkins call it when you crib, when you take somebody's stuff? Cribbing? Is that what it is? Anyway, I'm not cribbing purposefully. I'm not like, ooh, there's a good one. It just, because I translated, it all kind of sits in there and then it comes out. So anyway, I just wanted to share some things like that this morning with you, because I know a lot of people are having a hard time. The world is so screwed up right now. There's wars everywhere, and we're all at the age where everyone's falling apart all around us. I'm looking at the screen. We're all at that age. And I'm looking at other screens where some of you might be quite young. Don't worry. It's coming. The falling apart is in the mail. If you get to live long enough. And that's the problem. We don't know. Death can come at any time, and death will come, and nothing can stop it. We don't know when it's going to come. And the only thing that's going to help is the thing I'm talking about. I just convinced you of that. I just convinced you that the only way that we can deal with life's tragedies is to have this Dharma. So imagine, okay, now you're dying. We're talking about we are losing a loved one's sick. Now you're dying. Well, what's going to help you? You're going to need even more powerful resources in your mind to be able to handle that separation, that ejection. That's all we're trying to do here. We're not trying to get a PhD in talking the best, or trying to figure out how many divisions of 300,000 things we can come up with to impress a room. We're just trying to figure out, class after class, how to take these Lamrim teachings and integrate them into our lives in a way that will change us and make us able to cope with life better. Why? Is this for this life? No, because if we cope with life bad, we're going to create bad karma and plant bad seeds in our mind for future suffering. So the coping skills are so we don't create a future disaster, because the way karma works. If we can get our mind calm enough, then our mind, we're not dwelling, as Shantideva says, in the fangs of our afflictions. Those with a scattered mind are dwelling in the affliction fangs. So coping skills are so that we're not dwelling in fangs of that which give rise to contaminated karmas. And non-virtuous contaminated karmas, usually if we're in fangs of afflictions, and beings, for the most part, ordinary ones are involved in the ignoble, therefore most ordinary beings go to the lower realms. It's almost like we need 10 or 15 quotes just to get through our head. Aryadeva's 400 verses, if we could only get a couple of them into our heads. There's so many good ones in there about we're looking at these moments. Why aren't our moments? Why aren't we seeing an element in the entity of a moment? We see so much potential. We talk about that all the time in a moment. But why aren't we seeing a slayer in that moment? Also, in the same entity of moment that we see potential, why aren't we seeing a slayer slaying us? Because every moment is taken away a moment of life. Every moment that passes, that moment in the moment has taken away that next moment has slayed the moment before. It's something like this. These moments are slayers of our life. And we should see all of these circumstances of suffering. When we see someone sick, yes, we objectify and say, yes, it's that sick person inherently exists. It's right in that object over there, person over there, right in there, inherently exists. Sure, that's fancy talk. And that'd be great if we could get to that. But why isn't that cluing us, as Aryadeva says, that we'll be sick? Because we're human. We were born from a womb, and you only get to be about 100 years, and you don't know when you're going to die in that span, and everyone gets sick. That's a human. Why isn't that cluing us about our sickness? When we see that someone's in a near-death experience, why aren't we seeing that we are near death? Why are we so blind? It's because we haven't meditated enough. We haven't become familiar enough with reality. And I don't mean the nature of reality, the lack of inherent existence of phenomena, self of person, self of person and self of phenomena. I mean the reality of that we're not permanent. We're not permanent, and that the things that we think are great aren't. We're just not, we're not even at a course level paying attention enough to have our practice work when it needs to. And that's what this is all about. So let's imagine that we share this gift with all sentient beings. We know we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, which contains all of the stages of the path that sentient beings will need to evolve in order to, kind of make that seed of perfection that all sentient beings have, the Buddha nature, mature, proliferate into this mind that we have, this proliferating bodhicitta that we Buddha nature that we have, rather, this mental consciousness that can evolve is so amazing, and the emptiness of the mind makes it so that it can evolve. So we see the natural Buddha nature and the proliferating Buddha nature that all sentient beings possess, and in order to mature, we need this information. There's just no other way around it. There's no other way than combining method and wisdom to achieve Buddhahood. There's no other way than getting bodhicitta, becoming a bodhisattva, seeing emptiness, and completing the final stage of highest yoga tantra. There's no other way to become a Buddha. And we have all of the information here. So let's invite all sentient beings to be able to share this moment with us and be able to hear these teachings. Imagine you bring all hell, hungry ghosts, animal, humans, demigods, and gods here, any sentient beings here, any being who has afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience here. Imagine that you bring them all here, and everybody then gets into the 7-point Vairocana posture that you've gotten into in order to, kind of encourage them to clear their minds and to get into the most suitable posture for meditation to occur in order for the clearing of the excitement and the laxity to occur, in order to be able to get to the ninth stage, to be able to have a real actualized calm abiding occur. So you imagine that you're encouraging others, you're setting an example for others, and they are all following in your kind of examples and getting into the 7-point Vairocana posture. So just imagine that all the sentient beings that you've led here, that you're sharing this gift of the teaching with, are here now, and they've gotten into the 7-point Vairocana posture. And now just begin to focus on the breath. I've said a lot of words and talked about a lot of topics. So now let's just try to, as individuals, each and every one of us, including myself, try to get our minds to a little bit of a calmer state, where we're able to hear these teachings properly, where we won't have any of the negativities of the 3 pots that we hear about in the Lamrim over and over and over again. We'll be able to see ourselves as someone who's ill, and as the teacher, as a doctor, and as the Dharma as medicine, and this medicine that we should take, and as the teachings that should remain in this world, and be so glad that Buddha Shakyamuni has come. We'll be able to have this kind of motivation if we can calm our minds down enough to become proper vessels to be able to hear the teaching. And just imagine that all sentient beings are doing that at this time. And as you and all sentient beings are calming down your minds, I'll recite this verse, and then we'll just take a minute or so just to imagine that we as individuals are engaging in this meditation, to where we're breathing in and out and counting the breath on the exhale. And we're allowing our minds to only focus on that, only our mental consciousness. You are only allowed mental consciousness to focus in the breathing in and out and the counting in. You, mental consciousness, are not allowed to scatter around and be excited, nor you, mental consciousness, you are not allowed to get sleepy and dull. So the spy of introspection in your mind is going to make sure none of that's happening. And mindfulness will bring you back to that breathing in and out and the counting. So this is what we're going to do after I recite these verses. In the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yakshas, in the language of demons and humans too, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the language, the Dharma, in the language of all. Now let's focus on the rounds of breath. Now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is now suddenly in the space in front of you. Imagining this with your mental consciousness, you've got your mind calm enough to now put an image in your mind. And that image you're imagining is in the space in front of you, about thumb height, arm length away, eye height, about 1.5 or 2 inches tall. Imagine Buddha Shakyamuni is right there, fully alive, looking into your eyes with so much love and compassion. Allow your mind to focus on the smaller image, so that there's a benefit in doing this, because you'll then be able to allow your mind to expand on visualizations later on, when you get into more advanced visualization work. So you begin with a very, very small image, so that it isn't distracting. It says if the image is too big, it becomes distracting. But if it's too small, it's as if you're just trying to see it and so far away. So you do something that's realistic, that you could imagine, that's not too big, because it says that can cause excitement, and can cause just kind of a scattering. and it's not too small, because it can just be too distant, and maybe it's related to dullness. I'm not sure. So we imagine the Buddha Shakyamuni, but in an actual Buddha Shakyamuni, three-dimensional, alive, and looking into your eyes with so much love and compassion. And we imagine now that Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing the entire merit field, and the merit field begins to fill in the space in front of you, imagining all of the holy enlightened beings, any beings that you consider holy enlightened beings, imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama sitting on a throne supported by snow lions, imagining Khensa Geshe Wandak, imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo, and Demolochen Rinpoche, and Khensa Lobsang Gyatso, imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu Umzala Geshe Aga, Geshe Mallet Tenzin Ladrin, imagining Jeffrey Hopkins. May all obstacles be removed for us to be able to meet with this qualified teacher, Jeffrey Hopkins, over and over and over again. May his enlightened activities be able to continue to be at work, and may the obstacles that we have to not meeting with those enlightened activities always be removed. Imagining Chowder Rinpoche and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all of these holy beings in the space in front of you, all the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Vasubandhu and Dignaga and Dharmakirti and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha and Lama Salimpa and Lord Atisha, imagining the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Shantideva and Chandrashita and Baba Vega and Kamalashila and Lama Salimpa and Atisha, imagining the holy beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Buddha Lord Vajradhara to Saraha Matripa Tilopa Naropa Lotsawa Marpa and Jutsun Milarepa and Gampopa, imagining all of these holy beings, imagining Lord Atisha passing down the Lamrim lineage to the lay Lama Dron Tompa. We're so fortunate that this lineage continued and was passed down to us and put into our childlike hands, as it says in Rinpoche's supplication prayer, by Khensa Geshe Wandak and holy beings like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and so forth. We're so fortunate. This all comes from the rain of blessings, from this lineage. All of these names I'm mentioning are part of our spiritual family and are required for us to have the even minimal understanding that we have right now, because we know that Lord Atisha was so kind to take all of these lineages and put them into instructions for practice and press them down to Dron Tompa, and then these lamas just went to work and passed the teachings down and made them clearer and clearer and clearer for beings like me who are so dull, to the point where they're just ornamented with all of these incredible jewels and so forth that help us to see so clearly and be attracted so much to these teachings because of the way that they've been presented over these decades, these centuries, going all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni, and then to the Nalanda pendants, and then to the Tibetan commentators, and then all around the world, in Thailand and in Burma and in Vietnam and in China and in Japan, and all of the places where authentic forms of Buddhism formed and have remained. We're so fortunate because of these beings that we're talking about right now. Imagining the old Kadampa lineages, the three, imagining the beings of the Tibetan lineages, imagining the Padmasambhava, the Nyingma lineage, and the Kaji lineages, the Karmapas, and the Sakya lineages, Satyakonga Nipo, and the Sakya Panditas, and imagining the lineage of Galupa, Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtapje, Jelsapje, Basu Chuji Jetson, Panchen Sun Andrapa, Jayan Sheba, Janja Ruby Dorje, Gonju Jimmy Wampo, Jitsumba, Purbajok, Seventh Dalai Lama, imagining all these holy beings, the beings of the highest Yoga Tantra, Performance Tantra, Action Tantra, imagining them all in the space in front of you, all right there in your room, or wherever you're imagining that you are, but you're in your room. So these beings are actually in the room physically with you. When you call upon holy beings, enlightened beings, they do not have obstructions to omniscience. They hear you. You've created the condition for them to come. We just don't have the karmic kind of ability to be able to see them right now, but we eventually will be able to see them as Lama Tsongkhapa was able to. Imagining all the 35 Buddhas, imagining all of the protector deities. The small scope protector, Vaishravana, the medium scope protector, Kalarupa, the great scope protector, Mahakala, Palden Lamo, all of the holy Dharma protectors, the actual Dharma protectors. Now, with this in mind, we have everyone here. All the enlightened beings who remove the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience, who no longer have anything keeping them from being able to see conventional and ultimate truth simultaneously are here. And all the sentient beings who have among the obstructions to that ability are here with us, trying to figure out, just as we are, how to be able to achieve the state of the most reliable, blissful guide in the universe, who has perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect wisdom, perfect skillful means, perfect power, because of the path that he or she has gone through, that we are learning about today and will go through when we, in order to become the Buddhas we will become, because all sentient beings will become a Buddha. We all have Buddha nature. We all have a mind that can mature into the Buddha's mind. The stains that in our mind are adventitious. The mind is in the nature of clear light and unsullied. It's not stained. It can be cleaned up. We have this mind that can be cleaned up, and the process of cleaning up can happen because the mind is empty of inherent existence. Our mind's emptiness is no different than the nature of the Buddha's mind in terms of emptiness. The only difference is that we have defilements. The Buddha's mind doesn't have defilements. Why does the Buddha's mind not have defilements? Because the Buddha has gone through the path to remove the defilements. It's that simple. The Buddha had a mind that was defiled. The Buddha's mind could be purified because it's the same kind of nature of mind that our mind is. The Buddha's mind was empty of inherent existence and is empty of inherent existence. And because of that emptiness of inherent existence, the mind reflects and knows whatever it dependently originates into reflecting and knowing. And unfortunately, because of the stains in our mind, samsara is known. And because the Buddha's mind is not stained, nirvana is known, a non-abiding nirvana is known. The Buddha's mind is not stained because he or she has removed the stains by the bodhisattva path. We are now learning about the bodhisattva path so that we can engage in the bodhisattva path to remove the stains just like Buddha did, so that then we can be the most reliable, blissful guides in the universe with perfect love, compassion, skillful means, and power. And we will accept nothing less than this, because we know that we don't even reach our own full potential until we're Buddhists. Even though we remove all of our suffering and the hearers and solitary realizers abiding nirvana, we won't, if we achieve that state, we won't have even achieved our own complete needs potential. We won't have achieved it because we'll still have the obstructions to omniscience within our continuum. We'll still have the subtle self-cherishing attitude, and the subtle self-cherishing attitude disallows our mind from being able to flow to everything in the universe. And that stain remains there because we haven't figured out how to cherish others more than ourselves if we are stuck in an abiding nirvana. And that disallows our mind from being able to flow freely to everyone in the universe and help them with the same problem that we had gotten out of. The bodhisattva knows there's a big problem to get out of, and he or she then wants everyone out too. And then takes on a king-like bodhicitta. We know there's the bodhicitta that's like a shepherd and like an oarsman, but the real bodhicitta, the gold bodhicitta, is that bodhicitta that's the king bodhicitta that says, I will become a Buddha and I will free every single sentient being in the universe, and I will work as a bodhisattva until I become a Buddha and become better and better at doing that. So we know that even if we have renunciation and bodhicitta and we practice those things forever, we will remain in cyclic existence. The only way that we can be free from cyclic existence, the only way that we can become a Buddha, is to combine renunciation and bodhicitta and a calm mind with the wisdom realizing emptiness. And wisdom realizing emptiness infers there's a calm mind there. Because you have to have shamatha, you have to have calm abiding, sustained calm abiding, not an instantaneous one that suddenly happens, a calm abiding that's created in order to see this emptiness directly. So in order to see emptiness directly, you need to know what the object of negation is, inherent existence. And you have to know what the basis of negation is. So here we learn about it in the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. So if we could share a screen now with the Heart Sutra.
Can you share screen, please?
Oh, I thought you came in and did it.
No, I hit mute.
I see. So
Okay.
share screen. Would
Yeah.
anyone like to read it?
Let me make it big.
Okay. You're up, Lorinda.
Okay. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard. Hold on one second.
And remember, everyone, that this is explicitly about the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena, explicitly, and implicitly about the five paths, the path of, what are the five paths? Path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, the path of no more learning. Thank you, Lorinda.
The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajarik at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness, there are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu, up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times, by means of Prajaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as true, since there is no deception. The Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is. O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice a profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Agasamara Jachandara Samaraya Bete Ata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhiso Baba Gonji Sunji Gai Dimbidoji She Lobodoji Mebodoji Shibodoji Dragi Baji Medibishi Tanji Shedin Goye Soa Gerin Donja Jewa Dan Meden Nebedin Dan Jewa Dan Duma Joji Bazan Janjoji Dashi Dejan Den Dadele Sho. Make a mindful offering as a request for teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love. and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. And again, remember, keep the Shavasi Abbey in your prayers. Keep Geshe Dadu Namgyel in your prayers. Geshe Tenzin Chodak is his other name, who was lost on Tuesday. He went out for a walk in the woods in Washington at the Shavasi Abbey and didn't come back. So everyone, please pray that there's some healing and that Geshe-La's mind is at peace, and that all the members of the Abbey have all of the kind of mental skills necessary to deal with this situation that's just so intense. And just remember that it's not easy, and we need each other as practitioners when life becomes difficult to kind of lean on. And that's part of our Dharma practice, is Dharma friends. And this is why it says in the instructions on shamatha and the preparations for shamatha is that you should, have some good people around to be able to share with. So it's really important that we don't think that we're superheroes, as I mentioned kind of in the beginning of this, and that we should be able to handle anything in our lives without needing any support. We should just be able to pick up a book, and that'll be the medicine that'll make us all feel better. And then when that doesn't work, we feel inadequate. And that's where Dharma friends come in. And when I say Dharma friends, we look at what those are and what the qualities of a good Dharma friend are in the Lam Rim. And this is someone who kind of shares the aspirations that you do, that has a worldview that you have, and that at least has one of equal value and hopefully one of more value than you, because a Dharma friend with kind of more spiritual qualities, better spiritual qualities than you have, will help you to kind of thrive, to be able to be uplifted. And if someone's kind of there at the same level as you, sometimes you just talk in a circle. So it's always good to try to keep people around that you feel have qualities that are superior to your own, or at least qualities that are at the same level of aspiration as your own. It talks about this in the instructions. So I just want to encourage everyone to, take care of each other. And as Dharma practitioners, we have a worldview and a way of looking at things that are very different at times. And we see situations in life very differently at times, and that can be isolating. And that isolation can make you feel that this way of looking differently should make me be able to feel differently. And discriminating things differently takes a long time. This is why to study emptiness, simple syllogisms, you read a few times, it doesn't serve to make your mind stop screwing everything up. It takes so much attention and so much work on these things for so many years. And if you put in the work, you'll know it's working. But you'll know you'll need a friend if you're putting in the work, because you'll know that getting to that place where you could discriminate everything so differently that it wouldn't affect you would mean that if you don't have suffering feeling anymore, you've seen emptiness directly. And I don't know about you, that's a ways down the road for me. I don't even have enough of the wisdom arisen from hearing in my eyes, enough learning. I don't have enough to analyze yet. And I don't have calm abiding. So without calm abiding and not enough to analyze, I can't get inferential valid cognition. And with a union of calm abiding and special insight, because I don't have the special insight material, and I don't have the calm mind enough. So that breakthrough moment that we talk about seeing emptiness directly, which would actually produce a mind that could not have to have a suffering feeling any longer, wouldn't have to feel it, the way that we do. to produce that mind that we expect to be able to produce as ordinary flunkies would take so much effort and work and day and night practice and retreats, and we'll all do it. We will all become Buddhas, but we need to take care of ourselves and be kind to ourselves in the meantime, and realize that until we've gotten to that first bodhisattva ground, things are going to hurt a little bit. And sure, arguably on the path of preparation, things change a lot. And the way they do, it changes. Not there yet, but I've seen these descriptions. I mean, there's a change if in the path of preparation at the patient stage, you really don't have anything to throw you into lower realms anymore, even though you haven't seen emptiness. Something's different, very different for that being, even though they haven't seen emptiness. It says you could walk through a wall, literally, if you're on the path of preparation and you haven't seen emptiness. So I'm not discrediting those, who are high level bodhisattvas who haven't seen emptiness, but I'm just saying that in order to really, really not have to feel suffering, like pain, like hunger, bodhisattva, first ground bodhisattva isn't like, I'm hungry. They eat because they know that they have to sustain a body, but they don't have the suffering feeling of hunger. They don't have these suffering feelings kind of occurring. You have to study it. You have to look into what it says. Don't take my word for it. Look into it. But just give yourselves a break is what I'm saying with this stuff, and recognize that spiritual realizations take time. And if you don't have sane people around you, crazy people around you will make you crazier and will take you into spiritual craziness spiral. And it's not spiritual. That's the problem. It's not spiritual until you've realized that first teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity. And that's a bar that's super, super high. I mean, that's a super high bar. So we get into these we call them spiritual spirals, but they're not. They're just world. They're just the world taking us a different way than fill in the blank of your thing, whatever your thing is that's worldly that you do. And no matter what it is or how refined we get at a skill within the worldly situations, that'll never cut the root of cyclic existence. Until we get our mental consciousness to be able to take an object without relying on any kind of external stimulation, until we can just get our mind to focus on something without anything, we're not going to have a mind that can focus on emptiness. Even if we, have learned to be so precise in painting, or we've become so precise in orchestra music, or we've perfect violinists or perfect scales. I play guitar. I never got perfect at them, but perfect. No matter how perfect we get that, we won't know without the stimulation of the outside how to calm our minds down. We have to work on our mental consciousness alone without any kind of external things. We know that calm abiding is calming the mind, turning it off externally, peace pacifying the external and bringing it inward and abiding on an object and one only, right? And we know that any kind of noises aren't the mind, mental consciousness working. It's a sense consciousness. So we turn on music to get calm abiding, thinking that somehow hearing something, music like calm waves, could calm our minds enough to see emptiness, when we have to work with our mind alone in a quiet room without any distraction, with our eyes slightly open, looking at their nose in the 7-point Vairocana posture, and somehow even get that slit of light to go away, and where we're just in the image in our mind. Only there, all sensory perception goes away, and the mental consciousness is what we're working with. This is the thing that goes forward to our next life. The body is going to die. The gross mental consciousness that's me is going to dissolve, and there'll be a subtle consciousness that moves forward, is ejected, and then takes on a new identity. So it's that mind that we've got to know how to work with when we have to start maneuvering death process, dissolution of elements, ejection. How are we going to make sure that what I'm talking about right now is going to matter to you when you're ejected. What are you doing in your daily practice to make sure that there's some control over this chaotic process that's happening? And if not control, at least control over the moment before you're ejected, so that you got a good enough mind that it's activating things that you've been planting since beginningless time, that you don't know what it's activating, what's going to happen, that it's active, or something in this life, more likely that you've really, really focused on. It's just activating something. Are you ready to activate that which will give rise to your potential to study this again? Do you know then maybe there's a way where you could play the whole process right and create some sort of illusory body from at that point, kind of catch, they say catch the wave when we were younger, Coke, it was about Coca-Cola. It was an ad campaign, catch the wave. You could catch the clear light somehow if we've practiced enough. But that's a joke for someone like me. So I've got to make sure that I'm really working on that before the ejection first. What's my mind going to be like when I'm scared to death? Is it going to be scared to death and full of fear and bring up, don't leave me? Or is it going to be totally content that I'm moving into a new hotel? As Kensei Geshe Wandak used to talk about. He said that the old Kadampa Geshe says, I have no regrets. Good. Thank goodness. This whole thing's broken. Thank goodness I can get into another one that I can do the bodhisattva work with more easily. I need to run over to the neighbor's house if they call. I can't do that and they need help. Or I need to be able to get on a plane and go take care of somebody who's sick. And somebody who's old who's practiced, sees now, oh, this body is really getting in my way of helping others. So good riddance. Let's get a new one that'll allow me to help others and won't be so, achy if they haven't seen emptiness directly. I know you were going to try and catch me. It wouldn't be so achy, and so hard to help others with. If you could be at the time of death, imagine if you could die like that. You could say, fine, as long as I'm in a better position to help others, may I be in a better position to help others. May my mind be ejected into a set of aggregates that has the potential to become a Buddha as quickly as possible. What a different way to die. Just a relief in practice. It's a relief. It's not you're relieved you're dying. You're just relieved you're ready. And it just is looked at like another moment. Of course, this is happening. My mind is impermanent. It's based on temporal moments. And it's now abiding in a body that dies. So my mind's going to be ejected. This is to be expected. So wonderful that at the time of this ejection, for the first time, that I know of, obviously I got a human basis this time, but I don't know. I've got it. I've got a way to handle this process. I've got a way to not make this screaming, yelling terror. I've got a way to make this moment beautiful and be something that makes me be able to connect with every single sentient being in the universe. This death allows me to figure out how to love everyone. Why? Because this death is one that's putting in a position to be closer to being able to do that than my last one, maybe, because I've made myself more ready. So it's a sigh of relief instead of a terrifying moment, a sigh of relief that I'm ready for this. This is what I've trained my whole life for. I've been training to do this. When Rinpoche passed away, others had said, that, you look at it in different ways when you see your teacher as a Buddha, but then you also say other things and you listen to others because we deal in conventional terms too. And someone said, it's no big deal. Monks they die multiple times a day in their meditation. They've trained their whole life to do this. And now it's game day. That's all it is. for highly realized beings, they've literally been doing highest yoga tantra practice on the stages of death and dissolution every day of their lives since they took their initiation, and they've been practicing for the game day. Are we practicing for game day? Because there's some weird portal in that game. It's a portal to really bad stuff. It's a portal to pretty good stuff. Or it's a portal to samsara has an end, nirvana has no end. Wow. Pretty cool, right? So we're looking at the Four Noble Truths right now. And this is all connected. I cannot stress enough. Do not put these Four Noble Truths in the truth of suffering down. Do not feel you got it. Do not stop meditating on the 8, 6, and 3 types of suffering. Do not get over it. Do not say, I'm sick of suffering. Do not say, I'm old and I don't want to hear about death. Say, I'm old, I better hear more about death. Really? Because game day is coming. When? We don't know, and that's the problem. So have you prepared for the game? You've seen it. You see athletes not prepared to go up against, you remember in high school, you had some flunky teams that were not prepared to go against ones that weren't. And they found out very quickly on game day when it became 100-0 that they had not prepared properly for that. Likewise, we have something more serious to deal with. It's our forever. It's not our this life, it's our forever. And it's our forever for everyone we love. And those are the stakes. Do we want their forevers to be the best they can? Because if our forevers are the best, theirs are too, because of our connection to them. If we become enlightened, we then become so capable of helping them if they didn't get there first. These people that we feel so badly about when we're so sad about, stop being sad and start putting in the work for game day so that you can really help that person and really love that person. Try to separate what's sad, what's self-cherishing. Really use your mind. You have it all day. You don't need a video game. You don't need a TV. You have your mind all day. What's really going on here? I'm sad. I feel bad for that person. Is it the self-cherishing attitude, though? We got to be honest with ourselves. What's really going on here? We have to identify who we are. Not pretend we're someone we're not. Identify who we are, and then we have a basis from which to change. We think we're so open-minded, but we are not. The minute that something falls outside of our box, as soon as something that we think isn't open-minded falls outside of our box, we become closed-minded. Look at this. Look how crazy we are. We're so open-minded. They're so closed-minded. We're so quick to say they're so closed-minded and we're open-minded. We're really nuts. We are really nuts when we think about it. What is that? Self-cherishing attitude that comes from self-grasping ignorance. Oh man, I feel so bad for them, Oh, did you see that madman on the news? Anyway. So we have these 6 sufferings we've been talking about. We went through the 8 sufferings and the uncertainty. I think we got a handle on the uncertainty pretty well. I'll look at the Lam Rinpoche a little bit because I told you we were reading it. I don't want to, become a liar. We're in the Lam Rinpoche on page 284, 285, first volume. And we're on the fault of repeatedly descending from the high to the low. Okay. So we know we went over the fault of uncertainty, meaning we just don't know what's going to happen. Everything's going to go full chaos, just full Who knows? Everything we think is up is going to be down. Everything we think is left is going to be right. The things that we think are our loved ones may become our enemies. We may end up eating, somebody in our future life that's been born as an animal that was our wife, that was our grandmother. We're going to have all this uncertainty and disgustingness that's going to go on. And we say disgustingness in relation to how we think it is. We feel like everything's kind of permanent and like a rock, like, these things that we have around us are like a rock, but they're not. And this is part of our fault. This is part of our insanity, that we think things are permanent, that are always changing. And then we just get a new one when it breaks that we think is permanent. The thing that we didn't think was impermanent, that we thought was permanent, that we bought, when it breaks, we don't want to even pay attention to it. We just say we ate that thing. We get a new one that we think is permanent. So we don't even pay attention to the fact that there could be uncertainty. We think that these relationships that we have are static relationships. And when we even have a moment to think about our next life, we feel like we're bringing everyone with us. Like, Sumo, I'll see you next time. Talking to my dog, like, I'll be there with you next time, bud. But that's just not how it works. And that's what's disgusting. And that's the uncertainty. And then we talked about the fault of the insatiability. We're never satisfied. And then number 2 and number 3, we're casting off bodies. And number 4, we have this fault of repeated rebirth. And we found that Pabunka Rinpoche actually put it a little bit differently than Tsongkhapa, because Tsongkhapa's quotes that he uses in the fault of insatiability, Pabunka Rinpoche actually puts into the section on the fault of repeated rebirth to show you all the potential rebirths that you can have. Even though in those potential rebirths, you won't be satisfied, and maybe you'll have to drink copper and more copper because you're not satisfied, or more dung because you're a worm and you're not satisfied, et cetera, et cetera. But Pabunka Rinpoche chose to show you that, hey, you're going to have this repeated rebirth. Sometimes you'll be a dung eater. Sometimes you'll be a copper drinker. Sometimes you'll be a crier. And in all of those lives where you have this kind of like desire realm where we are, you're going to shed tears, and you'll shed so many tears that over and over again, that if you measure the ones you've shed already, they'd fill more than the oceans, and the ones you'll shed in the future will fill even more if you don't become a noble being. So we see how you can use quotes from the sutras to reinforce a lot of different types of meditation. And that's how skilled the Buddha was, that we can see quotes from sutras that can then be converted and used in various points in the 6 types of suffering, and then arguably used. At first, like I said last week, I was like, why does Pabunka Rinpoche not putting it in the right place? And then I saw it and I thought, wow, another ornament, another way to look at it. This is what the oral tradition and what commentaries are about. They're about changing our minds more. They're about shaking it up. They're about allowing us to look at things in a way that's more refined, that helps us in our day, helps us to see the instructions that are for practice. I love to see that. I love that my mind had that immediate response of, this isn't what Tsongkhapa said. And then I saw that, well, then why would you write a commentary? Why would you just repeat Tsongkhapa? Commentaries are to add, to show more, to show depth, to add something, there's no reason to write something and just repeat something, to show a nuance, to show some beauty. We look at the Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way. It can also be called a supplement to the middle way, because Chandrakirti adds a whole lot of stuff that is implicitly said in the Mulya Madhyamika Karika, arguably, but it sure isn't explicitly said. The vast path is really expanded upon, is supplemented by Chandrakirti in this supplement to the middle way, entrance to the middle way, that Lama Tsongkhapa wrote the Umagombarapsel commentary on, the illuminating the intent, where he not only included Chandrakirti's supplement to the middle way or entrance to the middle way, but also Chandrakirti's clear words to elucidate the meaning of this incredible text that Chandrakirti wrote as a supplement or an entrance to commentary on Nagarjuna's root wisdom text, the Mulya Madhyamika Karika. So now we're worried about, okay, it's not certain. you're going to die, definitely. And there's certain uncertainties there. You won't be satisfied. You're going to cast off bodies, repeated rebirth. And when you're doing that, you're going high to the low and high to the low. So this will be, in terms of cyclic existence, it says, I'm just going to read the quote from the Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. Having become Indra, worthy of the world's honor, you will still fall once again to the earth because of the force of past karma. Even having become a universal monarch, you will once again become a slave for other beings in cyclic existence. So it shows you that you're going to go high, you at times will have even God's realm existence at times within cyclic existence, where you will think everything is just so fantastic and wonderful, and you'll have gods and goddesses around you, and everything will look so perfect, and it'll be so great, and you won't want to leave there. But you'll have to. And where will you go to? Well, it just took you an enormous amount of virtue to stay in that God's realm. And when the arrow, as the Buddha said, is shot up in the air, sooner or later it loses its power to go up. And when the karma that threw the being into that high God realm of ecstasy at times loses its power to keep the being in that rebirth, just like when our human rebirth loses the power to have life force anymore because the karma is not anymore for us to be alive, we die. The God has that same problem. Just like the arrow going up loses its power, when we lose our life force, when the karma that keeps us alive is no longer there to be there as a condition to keep us alive, we die. Same goes for the God. They die. Where do we go after death? This is what I've just been talking about. Where will the God go after death? Generally speaking, because of the karmas that are created by most ordinary beings in their previous lives, that God has just used up so much virtuous, contaminated karma to be in that position that most likely the seed, the potential existence that will rise up at that time where their karma is no longer keeping them as a God, the potential existence will be to be thrown into the hell realm or a hungry ghost realm, it says. And the God will see that they're going to be thrown into that realm. So this is the fault of going from the high to the low. So it's interesting here, and then I'll end. So when you're in cyclic existence, you're going to be in realms you don't want to leave, but you have to. You're going to be in realms you want to leave right away, but you can't leave right away. But you're going to leave, and it's just going to go like this over and over and over and over and over again like that. You don't want to leave, but you have to leave. You want to leave, but you can't leave. And it's just this dissatisfying state of uncertainty, of rebirth, and bodies going away, and going in this high realm and not wanting to leave, but having to leave, and then seeing you have to leave and feeling that pain and misery. And the bliss and the ecstasy you experience, think about a good time. Goes by quick, even though time, maybe it's 1,000 years went by for the God. But think about a good time. When you have a good time, goes by quick. Time goes by faster when you're just really loving it. So for the God, they're like, yeah, wow, woo, woo. And then all of a sudden it's like, what? You didn't tell me this was going to happen. And then everyone leaves them, they stink, and they see they're going to go to a hell realm. Imagine or have to be like, live the life I lived before I met the Dharma. What if they saw that? A lot of it. Not like a God's realm. So they don't have to look and say, oh, hell. Just look at my life before I met the Dharma, a lot of it, if they were the God. They'd go, oh, not that. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Thank you again, everybody, for your kind listening. I really appreciate it. The prayer for the flourishing of Tsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. The lineage of pure view and conduct might spread. He offered a white crystal rosary to the sage who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation, cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct, practiced according to the conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning, reverently rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating all for the beings in the doctrine, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanation of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, and the practice of the three highest higher trainings, his skilled in life, accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine, protectors like the main guardians of the three beings paths, the quick-acting gourd. Vajrayana, Karmayana, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. In short, may the lasting of glories Guru's lives by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Lozang's teachings flourish. And we'll make a concluding mandala offering as a thank you for the teaching. And when I say that, it sounds like, oh, say thank you for the teaching. I'm saying thank you to Kensar Geshe Wandak and Geshe Dorje Damdu and Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Umzala Geshe Aga and Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin and Kensar Lobsang Jatso and Demalocha Rinpoche, all these people who play very important roles in making me able to talk right now. Because if I'm talking something brand new, then it's not going to work. I must be talking something that's been established by Buddha. And the only way I would learn what that is by qualified talkers who talk to me, so I can talk to you about what they talk to me about. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lozang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, I apologize. I inadvertently made them. The Dharma is a complex subject, and if I made a mistake in relation to the Dharma, I apologize. Or if I spoke in a way that was outside of the scope of the listeners and it doesn't help them in some way, I apologize without having removed the obstructions to omniscience and the afflictive obstructions. I have limitations. So until we become Buddhas, we won't know exactly what everyone needs. And that's our handicap. And that's why we must become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, so we can become really reliable guides. We can only guess when we're at ordinary levels, and we can guess a little better and know a little better as we advance on the path, but we won't know how to truly be of benefit to everyone until we're the woken up one, the Buddha, who's removed all the afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. And we imagine Vajrasattvas in the space in front of us, inseparable from our holy Lama. And imagine that light rays and nectars are showering down on us and all sentient beings. And those light rays and nectars are transforming into white ohms and red ahs and blue hums, and transforming our negative body, speech, and mind into pure body, speech, and mind. And we imagine that they're showering down on all of us and making that happen. Om benza sata samaya mena golaya benza sata zaina vajita deda meva azutagai meva azubagai meva anurag meva savazeri meva raja savagama suji mekin yamshi angoro om ha bhagavan savata kata benza baba mahasamaya sava om be. Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jarama Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jarama Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jarama Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Rama Jong Jarama 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 Jigala Jong Jarama 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 Danjo Kalaraje Mo Rama Wajadaja Danjo Rulu Onjo Om. Anyone who's having any obstacles to meeting with the Dharma may be removed by the power of the Drapasunji mantra, 3 wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Hari Griva Garuda Om Pe. The one who transformed into a reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher, Sugata, and protector, to you I make prostrations. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsara's end. And now a prayer of supplication for Khenso Geshe Wandak.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please. Lori will be reading it.
A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenso Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend, who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om, Ah, Hom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed a complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped, all composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness so they know who you really are.
Thank you so much, everyone. And just to let you know, in the coming weeks, I'll be telling you about a new program that's opening up at the Tibet House, New Delhi. Geshe Dorje Damdu is teaching with some others aiding in that process who are very, very well qualified. And it's called the Nalanda Certificate course number 2. I took the first one, and it's a very intensive, this one's going to be about 6 months long, overview of the Buddhist understanding of reality and of the various texts, and it gives you a really good overview and introduction to Buddhism in a systematic way that you wouldn't normally have access to. So I encourage everyone to look into that. It was just launched today. They made a big deal about launching it, and everyone's very excited that there's continued studies, because the Tibet House in New Delhi, India, and Geshe Dorje Damdu is starting to really have lots and lots of students who are requiring more and more learning, and they're giving that very, very affordably. And I just encourage all of you who want to learn more about the Dharma in a more systematic way to look into the program. It's the Nalanda Certificate course number 2. And Geshe-la asked us to, spread the word about it. So that's what I'm doing. I'll talk more about it in the weeks to come. Hope your mind is virtuous this week, and apply these teachings to your life, and don't make them this stagnant thing where you walk around moping. Walk around grateful and so happy and feel blessed that you have this opportunity to practice. Thank you.